Hello and welcome to the Curator's Salon podcast. I'm your host, Gita Joshi. Today, my guest is Karen Turner. Karen and I first connected in the pandemic when the world was in lockdown, and she was making some incredible pencil portraits back then. But welcome, Karen.
Thank you very much for having me.
I would love for you to share about your journey through art making in the recent years. You've got a lot more visibility, a lot more traction. You've even won some awards. But when we first connected back in the pandemic, what is that now, 4 years ago, you were doing
Yeah,
these very subtle pencil portraits. Do you remember that?
I do. And it's funny, it seems like a lifetime ago because really, I think when I started, not just really, I was a hobbyist artist. I think that's all I ever really thought I would be. And so I was painting, sorry, not painting, I was drawing faces that I found on the internet and taking part in the Sky Arts Portrait Artist of the Week that they did during the pandemic. So you had these different sort of well-known faces each week to draw. So I just really loved that. But to do it, you were kind of having to do it on Instagram. And it was the response on Instagram that made me think, well, maybe there's more to this than me just, drawing some faces in the room above the garage, which is exactly what I was doing, which is what actually led me to you because I thought, well, maybe I should kind of take this a bit further. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what to do. I had no training in any of it. And I came across you, so I thought, well, I'm going to get in touch. And I really remember having a call with you from that room above the garage and saying, is this too soon for me? Should I even be, I'm just making this up as I go along. I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't even know why I'm doing it really. But yeah, so I think sort of working with you really fits my mindset. I think that was what helped me realize that, if I want to do it, I can do it and take it seriously. And I think that's probably in my head. That was after those sessions, and that's when I thought, okay, yeah, I'm going to become a professional artist. That's what I'm going to do. So that really was like a huge turning point for me. And it was from there that I moved on to painting. I always wanted to paint, but I was too nervous. I kind of had this really clear idea in my head of what my paintings would look like. And it was harder to paint than it is to draw. And I was finding that it wouldn't look the way I wanted it to look. But it was when I started painting larger bodied people that everything kind of fell into place. I'd done a few paintings of my husband and a few sort of random paintings, and they just weren't very good. That's how I felt anyway. And it was when I found a larger model online and started painting her, and I thought, oh, hang on, this makes sense to me now. And then I found more, and I found then Ruby, the non-binary model that I really paint a lot. And so working with them, that really sort of, it just, everything suddenly made sense. It was from there.
Amazing. So you were working with models online? Were they like posing for you literally online?
Yeah, well, it was again, it was the pandemic, so I couldn't sort of reach out to anybody. Not that I think I would have known how to at that point anyway. So I was finding people online, and I can't remember the organization. There was like a website that had models on it, and you paid a membership and you could just use any photos. And they didn't have many larger bodied models, but they did have one or two. And so there was a model called Kira that I started painting. But I didn't know her. I just, sort of used her pictures from the website. And so it was from there that I then started to explore and find more people. So it was through Instagram that I found Ruby, who had a Patreon. So I was then able to pay for that monthly and use their pictures. So they would have different pictures each month. And then it sort of reached the point where I started asking them if they could do photos just for me. So if I said I want it to be like this and have this kind of costume and this sort of mood, so then they would do that for me, obviously at a higher price. So they would be just my images. So we've kind of been working together for several years like that. But there's so many people out there now. I realize, there's people selling modeling images through Gumroad and all sorts of different places. So a lot of what I do is working with professional models that way. But then because of, the increased visibility on Instagram, I did start to have just normal people contact me. And they weren't looking for a commission. They were just saying, I love the way you paint women, and I think they look beautiful, and you make me feel like maybe I'm beautiful too. Will you paint me? Just they're sort of basically offering free modeling services. So I get quite a few people that way too. So sometimes they'll actually come to the studio and we'll do a shoot, and then I work from the photos, or sometimes they're able to send me photos if they have somebody who can take really good high resolution pictures. So yeah, it doesn't have to be people in the UK. But yeah, I get so many that I'm thinking of sort of putting a thing on my website explaining to people how it works, so they can kind of get in touch and get some, get some modeling in with me. Because
Amazing.
it's a lovely way to work with people who just wouldn't normally think of modeling. And in the early ones as well, they were actually doing it nude, which I think is an enormously kind of big step to take, to sort of turn up to a stranger's house basically and take off your clothes. But I definitely do more sort of closed paintings now, so it probably makes it more accessible to more people.
That's incredible. And I love the response you've had of that. But that those portraits have also evolved some more in that most recent collection you've got, where, the work you were doing last year, or at least the work I've seen in the last couple of years, you've got this raw linen background on your paintings, really only the figure is in color and identified. But now you've moved into these delicious tropical backgrounds with them. What's driven that?
Well, it was kind of, it was started, it was a seed that was kind of planted in my head when I did a solo show in January, and it was sort of talking to the various people there about the way society boxes in women and sort of expects them to look a certain way and behave a certain way. And it made me sort of really consider the different ways society does that beyond looks. And one of the ways it does it is around the way we talk and the tone that we use. So I started thinking, well, I wonder what it would look like to produce a collection of paintings about sort of tone policing women and how we're not allowed to be angry, or we're not allowed to be emotional, or we're not, all these different things. So basically, yeah, I had a series of images of Ruby with different expressions that we would normally sort of be told not to have, representing anger or representing sadness or representing being overly emotional. Um, but I wanted, because I don't normally do a background, and the reason I don't normally do a background, aside from the fact that I think the pure linen looks lovely, is that I'm trying to sort of say something about the way we judge women out of context. So we don't understand their background. We don't understand why they look the way they look, the way they behave the way they behave. We don't know any of those things. We just see them on the street and we judge them. So I still wanted there to be no background in that sense. Like I don't want to put someone in a room, but I wanted colour. And I thought, well, if I go for sort of really cheerful, lovely, sort of almost Miami kind of tones, that represented the persona we're supposed to show, the really pleasant, easy, nice, that's the woman that we're supposed to be, that society is asking us to be, sort of against the actual real feeling that we have, that we're being told not to express. So that was the thinking behind the collection.
Amazing. And how was that show received early this year?
Well, the one in January,
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, it was sort of one of those pinch me moments, really, because it was sort of organized as part of the Jubel Emerging Artist Prize. So it was sort of every finalist gets a solo show. So they organized it all, and there were over 300 people, and it was just sort of not the way you imagine your first ever solo show to go. So it was, yeah, it's almost like a wedding day in terms of like the blur of it all, but I loved it. It was brilliant. It was nice to feel like a celebrity for a day.
Fabulous. And you've had quite a bit of success in the last few years, I've seen you shortlisted and winning prizes and publications. Can you take us through some of that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think I sort of purposefully put visibility as something that I wanted to sort of focus on. Partly because I had a full-time job and I had the luxury of being able to not have to panic about sales. And I thought, well, if I'm going to have a strategy, let's like take advantage of my situation and get visible. So that's really what I did. So I spent a lot of time applying to open calls and, targeting magazines that I thought would work for me, and competitions that I thought might work for me. And so, yeah, I just sort of was able to get into a lot of good publications like yours and Beautiful Bizarre magazine and Women United, and on podcasts. And, if anybody invites me to do something, I'm not likely to say no. I love being on a podcast. I love being in a magazine. But yeah, the awards and it's a really nice way of meeting other artists as well, because there's all sorts of ways that you can, but sort of doing it through, meeting the other artists in the Jubel Emerging Artist Award is lovely. And yeah, so it's been a nice way of getting out there and getting more feedback on the work that I'm doing, because the more feedback I get, the more it makes me want to do. So I've had a good few years on the visibility front.
I love that. I mean, it also shows that it is, you build momentum with it, right? You have to have some consistency of, you keep applying. If it's an annual, then, you apply again. And I think saw on your CV, there was one time when you were maybe longlisted and then you kind of applied again, clearly, and, were further up the rankings, right? You were a finalist and things. So it all
Yeah,
kind of
you've got to
adds
keep
up.
trying. It's really easy for artists to sort of apply and then not get into something and think, oh, well, that's that's not going to work for me. You do have to keep trying. You improve as an artist. The judges maybe change, what people are looking for changes, but I'm also really aware of like what not to apply for, because at the beginning I think I was just sort of throwing it all out there and just sort of trying for everything. But you start to realize what's maybe not right for you, whether your work isn't right for them, or whether it's just sort of like, a lot of stuff at the Mal galleries. I always thought, oh, I want to go and do that, but do I don't think it's really where I want to be. I don't, there's something about sort of that path that doesn't feel right for me. So I've sort of stopped looking at those kinds of open calls, and I like something a little bit different, and that's one of the reasons I like the Jude Riley project, because it was so removed from what normally happens, and the way they do it just was different, to have a solo show for each of the finalists, and to do this kind of recording of an interview, and all the stuff. Like even the launch for it was enormous, sort of black tie affair going on till 2 in the morning, and it was really removed from the normal kind of scenario. So yeah, I'm really interested in sort of applying for things that are a little bit different, I think, rather than just going again and again and again. Because there does come a point, although it's good to reapply for something, see if you can get further up the ladder, there does come a point when you think, well, I can't just sit here for 4 years in a row applying for the same things. I need to start looking for, new avenues, partly to sort of find a new audience or a broader audience, but just as well to sort of challenge me and find new kind of ways of thinking. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
love
I'll
that.
always be looking for new
And I
stuff.
think there's always new opportunities and there's different iterations from,
Yeah.
sometimes established organizations of sorts of things that they are inviting submissions for. I wanted to also talk about art fairs, because I know
Mm.
you have now done quite a few art fairs. I can't remember, there's one, is it in Suffolk? And then you've
There's
definitely
one in
got the other art fair.
Norfolk, in Norwich, yeah, Art Fair East, which is a really fabulous fair. It's sort of one of the biggest, this part of the country. And then yeah, my obvious favourite is the other art fair, and it is just, I mean, it's probably the favourite thing I could possibly do. There's just, again, it's that feeling of you're like a celebrity for a few days. It just feels so exciting. And working with the other artists, I think as well, the first time I did it, it felt really good because all of the artists there took it so seriously. They took their work seriously, they took their careers seriously. It felt like a really big step to move into that world. So to be there was that was probably the best thing about it, beyond everything else that you get and the visibility you get. It was actually being amongst these artists that then gave me more desire to kind of do more. And to go to that one as well as one of the fair directors picks was a really sort of big moment for me, because I didn't even know there was such a thing. And then suddenly I get this email saying that they sort of picked me. So yeah, that was a huge highlight, the first one of those. And then obviously, subsequent fairs, they're all amazing. But yeah, I think if there's one thing I would like to do more of, it's the other art fair, because it's so exciting. But it does take up a lot of time preparing for it, and it is exhausting because you're there sometimes till 10 o'clock at night, and you don't really get a moment to yourself. Like going to the toilet is the bit where you get to breathe for a minute. But people that you meet, the other artists that you engage with, the feedback that you get. I mean, I think probably most artists would say one of the best things about being an artist is standing in front of your work, talking to people about it and hearing how they feel about it and seeing the reactions on their faces. So yeah, I think nothing beats that. If I could do an art fair every month, if I had the energy, I would. But yeah, I would definitely. I'm looking forward to getting back to the other art fair.
Do you think you would consider one of their international editions?
100%. Yeah, I've got my eye on Brooklyn, definitely. And I know, having spoken to the organisers of the fair, they've said they think that would be the right place for me. So it's on the list. And every year I think, can I manage it for next year? But I'm really conscious I don't want to do it until I'm 100% ready. I've definitely got the right work. I've definitely got the right funding, because I think, I always see it as a marketing exercise and an audience building exercise. It's not a selling exercise. Not to say you don't sell, but I would never go into a fair needing to sell. Like I wouldn't do it unless I could afford to not sell. So yeah, I don't want to. Obviously, it's a bigger expense to go over to New York, so I want to be confident that I can go there, meet people, hopefully wow them, and I can afford it if nobody wants to buy anything, because they might not.
Oh, I'm sure your work would be really well received.
I hope so.
Can you share for our listeners some of your top tips on art fairs, especially given you did your first one with the other art fair not that long ago?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, probably the two big things: organization, because the last thing you want to do is leave everything to the last minute and turn up and not be prepared. I'm a real organizer, and I'm a real sort of everything I'm going to do, I look into it to the nth degree. Even if I'm going on holiday, I'll read the room service menu somehow before I leave the house. You know, I have to know everything. So I definitely turn up at an art fair fully aware of all the rules around how you put up the work and, you know, absolutely everything. So be prepared, give yourself loads of time, give yourself several months to make sure that you've got everything. You don't want to be doing labels for your artwork the night before. I always make sure I've got a sort of 3 days before where I don't have to do anything. You just sort of get into the zone and build up the energy because you need a lot of that. So yeah, so one is organization, but the other is mindset. And that's that you just have to go in and enjoy it. It's you know, awful if you go in thinking I really have to sell, I really have to sell. It's just there's nothing worse. And then I think people can sort of sense that off you, that you're panicking and you're looking around at other people and seeing them selling and you're, you know, so yeah, I definitely just go in and sort of see it as a really, really fun place to be. And just, you know, because the other artists are so good at supporting you as well. Like the last one I did, the group of people that I was with, like everybody just held each other up endlessly, buying each other food, just everything. So yeah, go in with the mindset of this is an experience, it's a chance to meet other artists, it's a chance to meet new, you know, new audience, whether they buy from you or not. And also to know that if people don't buy from you, it doesn't mean they won't in the future. You know, I've had sales 2 months later, 6 months later, a year later, people, you know, they put you on their list of like ambitions. So yeah, just because you don't necessarily make back your money on the day or weekend doesn't mean that you won't eventually. So yeah, mindset is, but then I think mindset is probably the most important thing in all of it anyway.
In all of it, I know. I think also stamina, because like you said, you know, you're there
Mm,
for, you know, really long days, so you have to be on your A game. You can't be, I don't know, friendly for a while and then feeling exhausted and like a bit grumpy as the next kind of
yeah.
wave of people come in. So there's probably, yeah, a bit of that involved as well.
Yeah, stamina is huge, and I really struggle to sleep. So I do find sort of day two is painful physically, but there's something in the air, certainly at a fair like the other art fair, that just keeps you going. It's just so exciting that you somehow make it through. But yeah, I would say don't do it if you don't yet have the strength to sort of be at the top of your game for 4 solid days. Take a
Right.
chair.
So that's awesome advice. But I know now you're also supporting other artists around ideas around visibility and things like that, you know, really kind of following the experience that you've developed. Can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, well, it's something I've been sort of gradually moving into over the last year, and I would often have other artists asking how I do certain things, you know, really around visibility. Um, and you know, I often kind of wondered if I should try teaching, you know, as an artist, but never really wanted to teach how to paint. Um, so you know, the opportunity to do some coaching through the Visual Artists Association came up last year. So for about a year, I've been doing various things with them, doing Instagram audits for artists and doing sort of Reels workshops. And that just sort of really made me realize how much I enjoy working with artists and showing them what I've learned. And, you know, what I really want to show is my experience. So I wouldn't ever sort of try and teach anything that's outside of my experience. It's really sort of, this is how I did it. And this is how I think you could translate it for you. Because obviously every artist is different and their goals are different and their strategy will be different and their style needs to be different. Um, so yeah, so I'm just sort of tentatively launching my sort of business Go Large, which is to help artists get visibility, and it really is around sort of understanding who you are. I think is like the first port of call. Like if you don't really know who you are, why you do what you do, it's really hard to know who your audience is, and it's really hard to know how to communicate with your audience if you don't understand them. So it's sort of really around that, and then kind of devising a strategy around like what artist do you actually genuinely want to be, and not doing what a lot of people do, which is just following other people and saying, oh, well, they're applying to that, I'll apply to that. So, well, that's not really that's not a strategy, and you could end up in a place that you don't really want to be in with a gallery, and you don't want to be with a gallery or not with a gallery, but you know, you need to sort of, yeah, so work out who you are, work out who your audience is, work out your goals, devise a strategy, and then communicate, like actually talk to people. And I think that's something that artists often have a problem with on Instagram, because you just think of all the people out there, whether it's your audience, but then on top of that, the potential audience. And it's almost like it feels like you're on stage. You don't know what to say because there are so many people. But the thing is, you just have to think about your key audience, the people that you really want to communicate with, and talk to them and talk to them like they're a friend. You know, don't talk to them like you're sort of doing a big presentation or, you know, announcing on a stage, like just be you. But yeah, it's not always easy to get to that point. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff I want to help other artists with. So some of it's sort of through coaching, like courses, some of it's through one-to-one mentoring. So yeah, it's just getting off the ground. But I'm excited to share what I've learned so far.
Fabulous. I think there's a lot of artists that would benefit from your experience in this. I think just going back to something you said there about finding finding your voice and talking to really only kind of talking to your own people. I think there is a lot of fear that I have had artists kind of mention around like, oh, will a gallery like me though if I say that? Well, it's like you haven't got a gallery right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like there's nobody sitting there in judgment, right? You being the most sort of honest and approachable, and we use this word authentic self is, you practicing to be more you, in
Yeah.
a public forum. And usually that is much more magnetic, and we can't be thinking, oh, what's that gallery saying, when they're not even following you, right?
Yeah, they don't, yeah, and also if you are saying something that feels right for you, and they whoever they are might not like it, well then they're not right for you. You don't want to work with a gallery that doesn't like your kind of real you. So
Yeah,
it's a way of, because I think people have that sort of people pleasing thing where they want to say things that everybody's going to like, but it's quite useful sometimes to weed out the people that don't like you, that don't like your messaging, that don't like the way you are, because there's no need trying to please everybody. You want to be talking to your people.
I think it's also those people pleasing tendencies that keep people very kind of vanilla with their
Yeah,
messaging and their content there as well, right? That sort of fear of a kind of backlash of somebody commenting that your painting's not very good to, something more personal and worse. So I think that, that it's all of this. I think it's really a build-up of courage over time,
yeah.
that you do have to keep practicing showing up.
Yeah. It's definitely it is a courage thing, and it's really easy as an artist to be a perfectionist. We really care about the work, and so you then get a perfectionist about the content that you're putting out on Instagram. It's really easy not to post because you think, oh, actually, is this the right thing to say? Oh, I'm not going to do it. But yeah, you've got to sort of just relax into it. But I think again, it comes back to mindset. If you really want to go somewhere, you've got to take the steps to get there. And knowing yourself, if you've really done that work to kind of figure out why it is you're doing what you're doing, you will do all the things because you know how important it is. So yeah, if you know yourself, then you won't be as nervous to show yourself.
No, that's beautiful. All right. We can wrap up, and I will add links into the show notes for people that are interested in your mentoring services and your programs. Where can
Thank
they
you.
find you online?
So online, my artist website is www.karenturnerfineart.com, and then you can reach my coaching stuff through there. There's a for artists tab, but also there's a direct website which is www.go-large.com, and then on Instagram
Fantastic.
at Karen_Turner_artist.
Super. I will add all of that in the show notes. Karen, what have you got coming up, if anything?
I mean, this is something I've got a project that I'm working on at the moment that I can't yet divulge, but all will become apparent in a few months. I've got a few commissions coming up, which is sort of rare for me. I'm not normally a commission artist, but I've done a couple, and sort of I'm getting more off the back of that, so they're getting lined up. And I am hoping that I will be back at the other art fair in March if I can make it all work.
Beautiful. Well, I look forward to seeing you there, and I will catch you
Fab.
online. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you very much for having me.